Hi, and thank you for stopping by the Librarian Way. I am Julia from Sunbeam Yellow, and in this video I'm going to take you on a tour of my library. Emily and I decided it would be a nice idea for you to get a visual image of our libraries because we often talk on the Librarian Way about things going on in our libraries, and so it's just nice to be able to visualize that a little better. So in Emily's last video you got to see her library, and that is right below me here on the blog, but this is my chance to show off my space to you, and I absolutely love my library. I love the size of it, I love how wide it is, and I love the creativity we've had in the past couple of years with decorating it, and so I'm really excited to show it to you. Now, Emily gave you a little bit of background on her library, and my library definitely has a different function than hers because I'm in a high school instead of in a public library, and so my library really has a dual purpose, just like most school libraries do. Not only do I want to reach out to students and really embrace young adult literature and really attack their recreational reading and really encourage them in that, and that's really the fun part of the job. But I also have to provide a lot of materials, especially nonfiction materials, for students in all of their research and homework assignments. So I really have to keep both of those tasks in mind when setting up my space and decorating my space. And I also have about 1,100 to 1,200 students in my building. Now, fortunately, they're not all in the library at one time, but it is pretty common for me to have 2 or 3 classes in the library at the same time, plus study hall students, plus students that just come by to see me or grab a book. So sometimes there are 75 to 80 students in the library at one time. So I also have to be careful of that and cautious of that when setting up my space in different areas. So I hope you enjoy this tour, and let's take a look. At the front of the library, the first thing that you see when you walk in is the circulation desk, and this is really the hub of the library. This is where students sign in when they first come in. This is where they check in materials, check out materials. This is where we try to be as much as possible because this is like our information center. It's a place for students to come and ask questions, to get materials, and so we just want to be present. It's also a place where we do a lot of our work, where we process books or catalog books or repair books. It gets us out in the library and working with students. Now, in a school, it is really important to have a place where students sign in. It's just important to have documentation on who's been in your library and what's been going on, and it just helps with your own statistics of showing how many students are using your library throughout the day. So this is a really important part of our library. On either side of the circulation desk in the front of the library is the fiction area, and this is definitely my favorite part of the library. When I first started working here, the fiction was actually in the back of the library, and I just hated that for a couple of reasons. One, because fiction is my favorite area, so I like to have it up front, greeting the students. And 2, if students needed help finding a good book, they had to trek all the way to my office, find me, and then we'd have to walk all the way to the back of the library, which meant most of the time that didn't happen and they walked away empty-handed. So it's important to have a fiction area that's available to the students where they can interact with you and talk about the different books. We also like to decorate as much as possible, so you'll see student artwork throughout this area. And when I first started here, the chairs in this area, like the comfy seating for students to sit in, were covered in like grandma fabric. And I hate to say it that way, but it was old roses and it just didn't scream teen. So I reupholstered these chairs with the help of the art teacher here at school with some more teen-friendly fabric. And so it just creates a comfortable area for students to come in, find books that they enjoy, and have a seat. And what's a fiction area without some cool displays? So here we have a Katniss and Peeta guarding our Readbox book rental new book display that we created just for our library. We're really fortunate in our library that we have a computer lab connected to us, so a class can come in and use a classroom set of computers. But within the library, we also wanted to have computers available to students. So we have 4 of these modules or carousels or whatever you want to call them that each have 3 computers at them. So we have 12 computers within the library for students to use if they just need to print out a paper quickly, or if they want to look up a book on the catalog, or just do some quick last-minute research. Now, you may remember in Emily's video that she talked about every year you need to just reevaluate how you do things, how things are looking in your library, and what kind of setup you have. Well, we have some pretty ugly stools in our library that students use when they're sitting at these computer areas. So I've convinced the art teacher to have her students paint these stools to look like different settings of books from young adult books. So I'm really excited about that because students appreciate those little details and those little fun decorating ideas that you put within your library. Okay, moving to the back part of the library, on one end is our reference section plus classroom area. We have about 11 tables back here, so roughly about 45 students can fit back here at one time in a class setting. And I've put reference back here for a couple of reasons. One, I really wanted a section designated for classrooms, so teachers felt like they could come with their classes into the library and have their own space and still instruct students as needed. We also have a projector back in this section, so teachers can teach a class, or I can teach a class in this area. And they have access to all of these reference materials. But the second reason, and I'll be honest, why I put reference back here is because it is my least used section of the library. And we're going to talk more about this in a blog post coming up in March about what do you do with those reference materials. But for right now, they're back here where classes can use them, and really all students can use them, but they're just kind of tucked in the back because they're not used very often. We also have an audio collection to the side of me, which you can't see, which is a newer section here in the library that students have really enjoyed. Okay, now I'm standing in the back corner opposite reference, which is way behind me down there. And this corner, which I know you can't see right now, is basically an exact replica of the reference corner. It has 11 more tables, so it can fit about 45 students down here. And this is also where we keep our special career section, college section, and biographies collection. So it's just another corner where classes can gather and we have some special collections available. I decided to separate biographies out because we do have some teachers that do specific biography projects, and we just found that it was so much easier to just have biographies in their own place. But I did want to point out that between those two corners we have 9 of these low shelves where we put our nonfiction books. So between those classroom areas is our research area, and so having all of this in the back together has really made it a smooth transition for students when they're researching in a class. And I really like having lower shelves because it makes it easier to see students and see who needs help. It just gives it a nice, brighter, cleaner space. Now, I know that nonfiction is not the most exciting area of the library, so we do try to jazz it up with student projects. So we have projects hanging out on all of the shelves, plus hanging from the ceiling, and it really just attracts students' eyes to this area. Okay, so here's a look at the biography corner that I was just standing in. And on the opposite end of the corner is a glass conference room. And we call this room the front porch because when you're sitting inside it, you feel like you're on someone's front porch looking outside, and we really love it. And this has been a great way of bringing smaller classes into the library and also bringing staff and faculty in the library. We've had everything from important committee meetings to soup lunches in here, and so it's just a great way of giving smaller groups their own space. Well, thanks for watching a tour of my library. Hopefully you enjoyed getting a glimpse into my world, and I'd love to hear more about your library, just like Emily said, so leave a comment or a video response or photos below showing us or telling us more about your young adult library space. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow.